Moia Umami, Beverly Smith, also known as Dr. Beverly, Cree storyteller and medicine woman Daffy Puyak, and Chief Arvo Looking Horse. Friday night, there's a concert with musical storyteller Michael Charette, also known as Laughing Fox, Wendy Rule, plus an Equinox Ball Saturday night with music from Spiral Rhythm. Come to Peconican to experience deep community where people gather, learn, socialize, and get inspired. Register now to take advantage of the weekend discount in effect until February 18th. Go to tcpaganpride.org and click on Peconican to register and get more details.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh, every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, cloudy with a low of 38, then Wednesday, cloudy and breezy with a high of 54. Cafe Latte is unlike any restaurant you've ever experienced. Grab a tray and pick from their award-winning selections of soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts. Cafe Latte, Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul, or cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us, share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio and AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. You know, for those who have been listening for a while, know that there are a couple subjects that I absolutely am going to be eternally fascinated by. And one of them is simply Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln has led such a unique, profound, and short life that there is so much around him that I find almost mystical in a way. And I'm not here to try to turn him into a deity or anything like that. My point is, I am continually fascinated by so many aspects of his life, whether or not he's actually had any part in these moments that I'm fascinated with. If that makes any sense, I think it will in a second with what we're going to be doing here. But, if you know me, you know that I believe that we've gotten his voice before through some of the paranormal equipment. I'm fascinated by, he actually had used a medium through a lot of his big choices during the Civil War, let alone Mary Todd Lincoln, she being such a very interesting person. And also all of the dreams Lincoln had that were foreshadowing his own death, and including some of him walking through the White House and seeing his body lay in state. This is stuff that I find very fascinating, and I just always are going to have these type of episodes. Tonight, we're going to be talking about something that is very interesting about President Lincoln, that included a plot, and that actually had all happened long after he passed. My guest tonight, Steve Sheinkin, is the acclaimed author of fast-paced cinematic nonfiction thrillers, including A Possible Escape, Bomb, Fallout, Undefeated, and Lincoln's Grave Robbers. His accolades include a Newbery Honor and 3 National Book Award finalist honors. He lives with his family in Saratoga Springs, New York. And Steve, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks a lot for that intro. This is fun.
This is fun. This is a lot of fun, and that's the thing that I really love about, at the time, I'm sure it was very traumatic for a lot of for people during that period of time, especially having to try to figure out what's going on in Illinois. But what we're going to be talking about tonight, and what Steve has written about, amongst many other things, is the fact that I'm going to say long after his death, that there was a plot to actually steal Lincoln's body.
It's true. It sounds made up, and that's what makes it so great. Like you said, I write nonfiction books, but I also get, for this book, just this one, emails from librarians all the time, just confirming or asking, should this be in the fiction or the nonfiction section of the library? Because it is such a strange story. And I mean, you summarized it. We'll go into much more depth, but yeah, there was an attempt about 11 years after his death to break into the tomb in Springfield where he wasn't buried, actually, but it was above ground. The body was in a marble sarcophagus, and they wanted to attempted to steal the body and essentially hold it for ransom.
And I know we'll get into this as well, because it's not even that, right? And everything around it. It's the fact that this tomb isn't even the right word for it, but this palatial, this tomb that was built with statues and everything had to be taken down, like the tower and everything. It had to been rebuilt like about 3 times, didn't it?
Yeah, it was rebuilt, but at the time you can visit it today, and it really does look, at least according to the pictures, it really does look a lot like it did on that night in the fall. It was actually 1876. The actual attempt took place on election night. They kind of thought, well, maybe no one will be paying it. It's not like they had CNN back then to watch the election results, but people were. You would go to a newspaper office or something and wait for the results to come in. And so it was a good night, they thought, to go to the cemetery and steal a body.
So what is back in the day, I mean, like you said, Lincoln had been dead for 11 years. And what was the fascination still with Lincoln all those years later? Was that a direct response to how the Civil War was handled, and how some, especially in the South, had been so angry over how it ended?
I think so, yeah, and that's related to this story, but it's also true, even independent of it. I mean, yeah, it was we think we're partisan now. Well, guess what? We've always been like this,
Right.
And it was even worse then. I mean, we fought a civil war. Let's hope it's not going to be worse than that. But yeah, absolutely, Lincoln, even after he was dead, revered by many people, as he still is, but especially then when people, in Springfield, Illinois, where he lived, I mean, people knew him. They used to walk down the street every day to go to his office, and people knew his kids and his wife. But yeah, a very different view, not so far away from there in the South, of this guy who had led the Civil War, and so that he was very much, a political figure, even in death. Absolutely.
Even in death. So, and we have about I'd say about 6-7 minutes before we hit our first break. Why don't we start talking a little bit though about what this plot was, and why would anyone think that stealing a dead body, let alone a president's, would actually be a good idea?
Right. And the guys were not geniuses, but they did have a plan. I mean, in their defense, I'm not really defending them, but they did have an idea. So the short version is, it's a wonderful story. You just couldn't make it up. They were counterfeiters.
Yeah.
So they had this great operation going. From their perspective, it was great because they had this counterfeiting operation going in Chicago. And one of their gang, really the most important member of their gang, because he was the artist, the one who literally made the money, $20, $50 bills. They were so good, apparently, you could take them into a bank and they, it's really hard to tell that they were counterfeit. Well, that guy got thrown in jail, and that's the very beginning of where I start my book, because
Right.
it's interesting, but it's sort of the background. So these guys, these counterfeiters, came up with a plan. But they were desperate to get their engraver, their artist, out of jail, and they came up with a plan. This is the part nobody knows about. The story is very well documented, but their thinking, not so much. They thought, if we can go to Springfield, it's a couple hours away, we'll break into the tomb. There's no security. It's nothing like what you would see today. I mean, there's a padlock on the door. And it's worth going and checking out if you can't picture that mausoleum, and there's kind of an obelisk. It looks like a mini Washington monument on top of it. It's quite an impressive monument, and it was sort of a tourist attraction. But at night, there was nobody there. It isn't a cemetery. So they said, we'll just break through that padlock, crack open the coffin, and steal the body. And they thought if they could get away with the body physically, get it out of there, they could hold it hostage, like a kidnapping. Now, normally you would want to kidnap someone who's alive, because obviously their family would want them back. But again, like you said, Lincoln was such a big deal to people in the North, and in Illinois especially. They figured, once we get the body, we have a lot of leverage. Then we can make a trade. We can force the government to give our artist out of jail. And then on top of that, they had all these dreams of asking for money too. And they had a plan, put it that way. It didn't go exactly as they thought it would, as they hoped it would.
It's kind of, I mean, as the story unfolds, it's kind of buffoonery in a sense. I mean, it truly is.
It truly is, and that's a wonderful thing. I mean, the true crime stories can be kind of darkly funny, and this one really is. And it's a nice change of pace. It's not a murder story, the dead guy's already dead. And these guys, there was something very buffoonish about the whole idea, and the idea that they could get away with it. Like, how do you make that handoff? How do you make that happen? Okay, we got the body. Meet me on the corner of the road, and you bring out our guy from jail, and we'll hand over Abraham Lincoln. I don't think they had thought that far ahead.
He'll be in a sack. We'll have him in a sack for you, and do the handoff, and that's just it. I mean, John Wilkes Booth couldn't get away. I mean, obviously that kind of was a huge crime, obviously, but I mean, it's like they'd be hunted down regardless. They didn't think about that.
I know but that is part of the charm to me of the story from writing it, and there was it really is a cops and robbers story, because the detectives who worked the case made some pretty stupid mistakes too.
Yes.
And they knew about it ahead of time, because they had these informants in the underworld of Chicago. But rather than break it up, they really wanted to catch them actually dragging the body out. They really waited too long, and
they wanted to watch them defile the body first.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they could catch them for a more serious crime and look like heroes. And it did. And from their perspective, also, it didn't go according to plan.
No, they ended up having. I mean, there was somebody embedded in the group, right?
That's right. They had what they called a roper. It was he was kind of an undercover agent, but he was a guy who was mostly a criminal, but would take money from the cops too if it suited his interest. And he was giving them information, the where and when, and so the police did know everything ahead of time.
And this was, if I'm not mistaken, this is part 1 of 2, right? With them trying to take the body, right? I mean, didn't they try it twice?
There were a couple different. One got kind of called off at the last second when the word leaked out, and then there was that election night one was the main attempt, where the detectives were there, and they really did break open and break apart that white, kind of like iconic white marble sarcophagus with words from Lincoln's speeches written on it, and so they got much farther than the police intended for them to get.
Now, Chuck, in the comments, and if anyone has comments or questions, please put them into the comment section. You can go, if you're If you're watching us on Facebook, and go to GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. If you're listening, you can go there as well. Chuck says, were these robbers in league with any Masons? That would be the only thing that would be a possibility to me. I'm not, Chuck, I'm not sure if I'm following necessarily. Like, are you saying that you think the Masons would have a reason? But Steve, that's not really the case here, right?
That's nothing that I've ever heard of. I think they were just straight up, they were counterfeiters. That was their main business. They had a bar in Chicago, but this was a desperation attempt to get this man out of jail who was really valuable to them.
And they actually they didn't. I mean, basically what you're saying is that they had no business trying to come up with a crime like this. This is totally out of their league of trying to take body snatching or kidnapping, probably of any kind. They were all more in league with just counterfeiting. That's
a good point. That's a kind of a good point, that maybe they should have stuck to their own brand of crime, that they didn't know the world of counterfeiting. But yeah, I remember that they talked to, a safe cracker, just getting advice about how are we going to get into this. It's almost like breaking into a bank. But you're right, they were a little bit out of their element in terms of the nuts and bolts of pulling it off. And
I see what Chuck is meaning from his statement about the Masons. I think Chuck was making the same statement we just made, was that, like, what are they doing trying to steal a body when they should, as you just said, maybe stick to counterfeiting? That seems to be, and wait for, do we know how long the person that they were trying to get, how long he was supposed to be in jail for?
Yes, I remember that. And his name was Ben Boyd. He was a really young guy, brilliant artist, and he was thrown in for 10 years. So this was about a year into his sentence, and they just did not want to wait that long.
That's incredible. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, take our first break. And the thing is that it sounds like we're done telling the story, but that's not true. There's still more to tell, and more not craziness, but I mean, there is more to this story, as it just seems to kind of go on and on with this sort of thing. And we're gonna talk about it, and we'll talk about a little bit about what what else Steve has written. We have a lot to go through so far, and we're going to do that right now. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Hello, I'm Jody, also known as Witch Jody on social media. I opened Midwest Witchery and Healing in historic Stillwater because, as a nurse, I love to help others. When you come and visit Midwest Witchery and Healing, you will find everything from divination and magical services, classes to ritual tools, jewelries, handcrafted candles, witchy gear, and much more. My store is a safe environment for all on their own unique path. Look for the purple door. Find out more at MidwestWitcheryHealing.com.
Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
In the heart of the Northeast, there lies a hidden beast, a dragon's lair at the crossroad, guarded by the maiden Mother Crone. A treasure trove of spells galore, discover incense, books, jewelry, and more. Just as the oracles foretold, this is where your mystery unfolds. As the shadows creep and the veil gets thin, do not fear what lies within. Magus Books is where your journey begins. Visit us at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis, or online at magusbooks.com.
If you own a holistic or metaphysical business and are looking to expand, then you need to be listed on metamorphosisconnections.com. It's a network where you can grow with like-minded practitioners and reach new clients. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory you need to list yourself and your business. Our platform makes it easy for you to create listings of your products and services, and you can also choose to list your classes, events, and so much more. MetamorphosisConnections.com helps you create weekly and monthly promotional ads targeted towards your potential clients and promotes them for you via social media and newsletter. There are clients searching for your specialty right now. Let us help them find you. Start your listing today so you can share your own unique gifts and talents by finding the level of membership that best fits your needs. Let us help you reach your clients that are searching for what you do. Visit MetamorphosisConnections.com and sign up today.
And I just wanted to remind everyone, tomorrow in Anoka at Billy's Bar and Grill, we're going to do Ghost Stories and Beyond. And we are very excited to be doing this one again. We did this last year, actually a year ago. It was February last year, where we did what we call 18 minutes of nonstop paranormal activity at the Grant House. You all remember the Grant House is over in Rush City, Minnesota. And on November 5th, 2022, a group of us, we did an investigation, and we did an experiment more than anything, and it yielded one of the most powerful paranormal experiences of our lives. And we believe that not only did we make a difference, it made a difference to our lives as well. Last year, we had everyone who was involved with it. It was our students from our paranormal class. They presented it. This year, it's just going to be Shar and myself, just to kind of keep things a little bit more simple, and that we could get through the content in the time allotted. But this is something you don't want to miss. Honestly, this is incredible, and we are so incredibly proud to have been able to be a part of this in some way. That I really want to let you all know. If you have a chance to come out to Billy's tomorrow, it's $10 to get in. Does not cover food and drink, but burgers are half price tomorrow. It's always fun coming out there. I hope to see you all there. And then also, I just want to remind everyone, this week, or heck, this month on AM 950, let's just call it the whole month, right? We have Listener Appreciation Month this month. How many times can I say month in a sentence? And we are giving away stuff this week, next week, the week after. This week, we're giving away tickets to the Listener Appreciation event that's happening February 13th. That's next week. I will be giving away tickets for that on Friday. Listen, if you're the first caller to call in, you can win tickets. It's going to be fantastic. A lot of fun, some drinks, some food. Some good people are going to be there. So, and then every week we give away something new. So please stay tuned and please take part in it. We really do appreciate you listening to AM 950, and I really do appreciate you listening to GhostBox Radio. And we have with us author Steve Sheinkin. We've been talking about the grave robbing of Abraham Lincoln. And Steve, there's a couple comments I'd like to read for you. I think they're really good comments, and I think they're spot on. First of all, Emily says that it sounds like that they were just absolutely desperate. Their main moneymaker literally was incarcerated. Desperate people do desperate things. I mean, absolutely. You know, it's like I joke to you that the kind of buffoonery, but it is probably to the point. They're like, what are we going to do? We don't have anyone like this around.
Yeah, I think that point is spot on. And of course, there were other artists, other people who could make the money, and they would do it by, it was pretty low tech in those days. They would just, engrave onto metal plates. So however good, your art was, that's how good the bills turned out if you had the good paper and ink. And so you're right. They could get other people, but they weren't the same. This guy was just really talented. He probably should have used his artistic skill. And one of the funniest parts of the story, there are many, is that he had no idea this was going on. His name was Benjamin Boyd, and he only found out afterward that this had been happening. And so he it wasn't like he was sitting there waiting to be sprung out of jail.
That's fun. I never even thought about that. Yeah, he didn't know. That's incredible. And I can imagine that there's probably just a lot of really crappy counterfeit versions of money out there back then, weren't there? I can just imagine that.
That's a fascinating subject too. But yes, and apparently the government, the federal government, only really started printing money during the Civil War, and so very recently to this story, and it was easy to counterfeit. It wasn't like today where you can look up and see these anti-counterfeiting, holographic images inside. Of course, they didn't have that sort of technology. It was just ink and paper, and apparently there was a point where it was almost half the money in circulation might have been fake, and the whole reason that the Secret Service was founded, this is a good trivia question to people who think they know a lot about history, was not to protect presidents. In fact, it wasn't until the third assassination that anybody bothered protecting the president. It was to fight counterfeiting. The Secret Service was founded as a counterfeiting police force. And so the cops in this story are Secret Service agents.
That's really interesting. Was paper money even the same in it wasn't, am I misremembering that it wasn't the same design across the country as it were back then? Wasn't it different designs in different areas as well, or was it?
They had different. This was the beginning of when they started to kind of regulate that and make, here's what a US $20 bill looks like. Yeah. And you can go online and see the designs. They're beautiful. They're really elaborately designed. So it would be a very hard, I jokingly say it's an art project, but it's a hard one though.
Right. And I suppose they made them very intricate and designed so that they could really try to cut down on the counterfeiting, because not everyone can do that sort of thing.
That's right. And like you said, most of it was really bad. People would even just misspell Philadelphia or something, just really obvious things.
I'm not sure if I could spell it. So, and I see people calling in, and I can't take calls tonight because it's just me. But if you want to go to on Facebook, GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, we're streaming this live on there. You can put your questions in the comments. And then Lisa says that is a good old-fashioned jailbreak above their pay grade. And I suppose that this seemed doable, stealing Lincoln's body, opposed to trying to break somebody out of prison.
Now Lisa, that's a great question. Of course, you would have thought that, all right, if they're that desperate, then why not, try to bribe a guard, dig a tunnel if you're that desperate, do something at least that could theoretically work. But thankfully, if you love weird, gruesome, creepy stories, I'm glad they didn't do that.
And of course, they're all attached to Lincoln somehow. And then also, I want to talk just a little bit. So this mausoleum, and thank you, Chuck, for telling me the word I was missing when I was trying to explain it earlier. This was in Springfield, Illinois. And the idea of where to put Lincoln was also a big ordeal, kind of led because of Mary Todd Lincoln, her insistence, and she made no friends during this part of the story at all.
Yeah, the body was, like you said, there was almost something sacred about it. Well, it was to many people. And you can even go easily online and find pictures of the open casket because, all right, everyone knows he was killed in Washington. And then they took his body back by train, but it took 2 weeks. They took their time.
Yeah, they did. Bringing
it back through the Northeast and Midwest. And thousands and thousands of people lined the railroad all the way. And they kept, again, gruesome details, which are always good in a story, but they kept the coffin. They embalmed it really, really well for the time. And they even had a makeup artist come along with them to keep him looking as best as he could, under the circumstances. But and it wasn't until they got to Springfield that they closed it. And actually they put the body, and this is significant because it came up years later, but they put the body inside an airtight lead coffin, and then that went inside the more elaborate marble sarcophagus.
Now, if I remember correctly, a couple things. Number one, I forget the gentleman's name, high-ranking official that was in charge of the whole train trip, that he was absolutely dead set against anyone trying to take a picture of Lincoln. So the one that we do have is one that he was very upset that got out, because they didn't want any pictures, from my understanding, pictures of Lincoln lying in state. And then secondly, if I'm not mistaken, there's a picture of the funeral procession that's traveling across America, that there is in one of the pictures like a baby Theodore Roosevelt.
I remember reading that too. Maybe when they're going through New York City.
Yeah.
And he's in the window of his apartment building.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or
yeah.
It wasn't an apartment building. Of course, they were wealthy. It would have been a fancy brownstone. But yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, there's. I mean, it's just, it's so weird, because you have that picture. You have the picture of when Lincoln was being sworn in for his second term, that John Wilkes Booth is in that picture. There's just some real. I mean, this is why I cannot get enough of Lincoln. There's so many synchronicities and so many interesting things to it. Have you seen on Discovery Plus, and I bore everybody with this, the documentary called The Last Photo of Abraham Lincoln, where it's this photo that is said to be of him dead in the bed where they took him across the street from Ford Theater, where he died the next morning, that the people upstairs, they were photographers just staying there, and that they were able to get in and take this picture when nobody was there, because the person guarding the room at the time after he passed, they kind of made it work. And that the whole thing is about, could this possibly be real? It's hotly contested, but it's a very interesting documentary on it. And those pictures of him, that one picture of him laying in his coffin that no one should have taken but did, that looks like Lincoln. This other picture really doesn't look like Lincoln, but it looks like a man that's dead. It's such an interesting thing.
I'm making the note just to look that up, because I'm like you, I'm obsessed with this stuff too. But I know I don't know that story. This story has so many. You kind of hinted at it. It has so many epilogues and weird twists, because the body was moved around a lot over the years after this grave robbing attempt. They were really worried that someone might try again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really buried again or into a permanent spot until I think it was 1901. And they did look, just to bring it back full circle, they did open his coffin at that time and look to make sure he was still in there.
Yeah, they did. And there was a young boy, if I'm not mistaken, that was, what I'm talking about, right? That was there.
I put that in the very end of my. Yeah, you just can't make this stuff up. But yeah, there were people again who lived in Springfield, who knew Lincoln. So all right, they decided, we're going to go out to the cemetery. We're going to look. We're going to open up. And the lead coffin was key, because it was airtight. It really kept the body preserved, or they hoped it was. They didn't know what they were going to see. But yeah, one of the guys who had known Lincoln, middle-aged guy, but he had a son who was like 12 years old, something like that, and used a telephone, pretty new invention in those days. But he called to the kid's school and said, "You got to get on your bicycle and ride. You got to get down to the cemetery. There's something really, you got to see this." It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And he was a kid who lived until fairly recently, but he was there when they opened. They actually got a plumber to do it, because it was working with lead, almost like working with a lead pipe.
Yeah.
And he used his tools. He opened it, and they said, just what you said, he looked just like they remembered. He looked like a statue of himself.
Because he's bronzen, right?
Yeah, it was so well preserved that they just couldn't believe how, you couldn't say he looked well, but I mean, how well preserved and how much just like they remembered him, he still looked.
It's so incredible. So then from there, they. And that's the thing that you and I were talking about. I mean, before this opening, you and I were talking before the show about how kind of in a way, Lincoln's body was kind of in plain sight for 20 some years, but no one knew because they were trying to hide it in the least likely place that someone would go and look to steal it again.
That's right. And they really were worried. I mean, these guys did, like we said, they got farther than they should have. They really did break open the coffin. I mean, I guess I'll give a spoiler and say they didn't actually make it away with the body. They were arrested. I mean, it had, from a storytelling standpoint, everything you could want. There was a shootout in the graveyard. The guys got away temporarily, but they did stupid things. You know, they went right back to their saloon in Chicago because they didn't know where else to go. And so, of course, the police were watching that and arrested them. And so after it all, they went to jail, not for very long because it technically wasn't a very serious crime in terms of laws on the books.
Yeah.
But they were, the caretakers of the monument were very worried that someone would do this again. And so they kind of put together a volunteer guard. There was no sort of official rangers to take care of this monument. But they were you're right. They kept the body in the basement. They kept moving it around, kind of misleading people about where exactly it was because they knew it just wasn't secure.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And, and then when they do finally, after like that 12-year-old boy gets to see that moment, and it truly is the last time any of us would ever have a possibility of seeing Lincoln or even his casket, because they really took care of it after that.
Yeah, they were really worried about this happening again. It may seem strange to us now, but if you look at a picture of the monument, you'll see it's kind of on a grassy hill. And what they did is just bury a hole. They dug a hole on the side of that hill and buried it in an unmarked spot. They even put it under wet concrete and just let it harden over the casket, and then grew the grass back over it again so it was unmarked. And that's how worried they were that somebody would try to do this again.
No one's going to be able to get to him ever again.
No, with any sort of security, of course, you could never get into it now.
No.
Would anyone try that again? Of course, today it would be, you like to think it would be impossible, but yeah, I don't think anyone would try that again.
You never know.
Yeah, I guess you never know.
Why don't we go ahead and do this? Let's take our next break. When we come back, there's still more to talk about with this and General Lincoln things. It was so fascinating, really incredible. I'm enjoying this conversation quite a bit. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Otherwise, you're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Hello, I'm Jody, also known as Witch Jody on social media. I opened Midwest Witchery and Healing in historic Stillwater because as a nurse, I love to help others. When you come and visit Midwest Witchery and Healing, you will find everything from divination and magical services, classes to ritual tools, jewelries, handcrafted candles, witchy gear, and much more. My store is a safe environment for all on their own unique path. Look for the purple door. Find out more at MidwestWitcheryHealing.com.
Feeling like people just don't get the vibrant rainbow unicorn that is your celestial essence? Have you been wondering how you stepped into this infernal, mundane timeline full of muggles, NPCs, and toilet paper shortages? Here at Magus Books and Herbs, we get you, and are staffed with real-life unicorns just waiting to help you rediscover your shine. So come explore your magical side with books, herbs, incense classes, and more at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis or online at magusbooks.com.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with MetamorphosisConnections.com. MetamorphosisConnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search MetamorphosisConnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on MetamorphosisConnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting MetamorphosisConnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, cloudy with a low of 38, then Wednesday, cloudy and breezy with a high of 54. The renowned musical satirist Randy Rainbow is bringing his Randy Rainbow for President tour to the State Theater in Minneapolis on Friday, February 23rd. Get your tickets at randyrainbow.com.
And I'd like to tell people, and I'm really excited about this. If you remember, we did this over Halloween. We did a live investigation of the Grand Garage in Stillwater. Well, we're going to be doing that again on February 21st. It's going to be a special 3-hour episode of GhostBox Radio. But this time slightly different. And I really want to get people out here for it. Last time we did not open it to the public. This time we kind of are opening it to the public. What we're going to do is we're going to have the Tilted Tiki is going to host us. For those of you who don't know, it's this beautiful, wonderful tiki bar, great food, great drinks. There is no admission price to get in, but please buy some food, buy some drinks, have a good time. I'll be doing the show from the stage there. We'll have a TV set up, and throughout the rest of the building, the team, like Shar, which you might have heard from such shows as this one, and our friend Kyle and Witch Jody, we're going to be doing an investigation throughout the rest of the building. We're going to have a big screen up so that you can see what's going on while you have your drinks and food. And one lucky winner, all part of Listener Appreciation Month, is going to be able to investigate with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's February 21st. We'll get out some more information, but please mark it down on your calendar. We really would like to see you out there. It'd be great support for such great businesses in Stillwater at the Grand Garage. We're going to be obviously working with Tilted Tiki, Midwest Witchery and Healing, and Locale Makers Market. So it's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited for us to be able to do that. More information coming up in the next couple of days. We have with us, and we're finishing up our final segment with Steve Sheinkin, author. We've been talking about Lincoln's grave robbing and all that good stuff. I got in the comments a couple people talking about the synchronicities between Lincoln and Kennedy. And Steve, I don't know about you. I know that there are some. I've never actually fact checked them because I know this is one of those things that really is open for a lot of rumors and I'm not saying that the folks putting it into the chat are insinuating that, but I get kind of leery about putting that in. I don't know enough about it to actually talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I remember hearing about it though, even in high school, and being fascinated by some of the links, just some of the common coincidences between names and that are involved in the stories. And so, yeah, there's probably people in those comments who know a lot more than we do about that part of history.
And I remember, for example, I've always was told that Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy, and Kennedy's secretary is named Lincoln.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yes.
And I just don't. I'm not saying it's not real. I don't feel comfortable throwing that out there because I really don't know. I don't know, and I don't want to. I don't want to make people upset at me for being.
It's worth checking.
It's worth checking out. Please, folks, check and report back to us. Here's the thing, though. I always found fascinating, just this whole Lincoln thing. Is that I'm sure you saw the TV show in the 50s where it was you kind of guess who this person is, and this guy who is in his 90s, he comes on and he has a big bandage on his head, and he comes on and they try to guess who he is, and he's like, I was part of a major historical event, and what he was a part of was he was at Ford's Theater the night of Lincoln's assassination, and this is in the 50s. He was 5 years old.
Wow.
When that happened. It's on YouTube. Go check it out. I mean, when they guessed it pretty quick. But when they guessed it, you could hear the crowd just gasp. And like I said, he was in his 90s, and he made it this far in life. And I said he has a big bandage on him. Well, they bring him out to, I don't remember if it was shot, because, television at that point mainly, I think, was in New York. I don't know if that's where it was. They bring him out there, and he falls. Like the day before, the day after, or the day before or that day, he falls, hits his noggin. They have to bandage him up. He dies like days or maybe a week or so later from complications from that fall.
Wow, I can picture that clip that you're talking about. I didn't know that detail at all about the fall.
Yeah. It's pretty. I mean, it's very chilling, and it's funny because like you just look at the timing. It's like, oh, that is possible. I just ran across a picture that somebody colorized that was taken in 1864 of a American Revolutionary veteran so a part of the American Revolution. He was 100 years old when that picture in 1864 was done. And it's really interesting thought. I was just talking about his friends over the weekend that he died during the Civil War. What he fought for in the American Revolution, this is what he saw his country turning into when he had died.
That's amazing. And of course, I had to just quickly try to do some mental math. But yeah, that makes sense that it could. Of course, that's realistic if he lived to be 100. And that's amazing when you start to see those connections, and maybe time, it's not as long ago as we really thought.
It's exactly it, because it's like, well, American Revolution, that was like 200 years before Civil War. No, it's not even close.
No.
I mean, it's 100 years from the time we're talking about, Lincoln's grave robbing. It's all relative. And then the final thing I want to kind of throw your direction, just all these Lincoln synchronicities, being that, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Lincoln's son a part of, just by happenstance, well, at least 2 presidential assassinations, if it wasn't 3. Like he's been a part of at least 2 of them. And it's just like, what is going on with this Lincoln family?
The family, yeah. And you mentioned Mary, and of course they had some sons died really young.
Really young.
That family, yeah. What a really tragic.
I mean,
events.
It's like you could get excited about Lincoln and really want to follow him and find out more just on the surface of what he's done. But when you go deeper into this, kind of more morbid sort of side, which I think Lincoln was very morbid, to be very honest. I think that there's a lot more there.
Yeah, he clearly had some that people who knew him talked about him. He would just kind of go into these really dark moments, and they just couldn't tell what he was thinking about. And there were other attempts. People may know this, but there was an attempt to assassinate him before he was even sworn in. There was a really well documented plan to try and get him as he traveled the other way from Springfield to Washington. It was going through a train station in Baltimore, and there was a really well documented attempt to shoot him while he was on that train, and that could have happened.
And they wasn't it that they were that the Lincoln Party, they were all aware of it, but they had to be very careful about it. Like, didn't the train, instead of even going straight through, didn't it kind of, which seems incredible that they would do this considering knowing what was happening, that they kind of stopped for a while because the timing is what was crucial here.
Yeah, the assassins were expecting him to come on a certain train. You had to, at that time, change trains. You had to actually cross town on a wagon to get from one line to another. And that's where they thought he would be really vulnerable there. And so Lincoln, and it was really, there's, again, no Secret Service in the sense of protection at all. Just some friends with guns, basically. And they said, if we change and go on an earlier train, they we could probably get through before they find out. And so Lincoln just showed up in D.C. Nobody was expecting him early in the morning, and he actually took a lot of grief from that. People made fun of him for sneaking into town, but I think he had a pretty good reason to do it.
He kind of had a disguise of some sort. I don't mean necessarily like a funny nose or anything, but I mean, they really tried to hide who he was, even though he's this massively tall person.
Right. He had some sort of cloak on, but again, you're right. He was 6'4", and really thin, and a really distinctive figure. Yeah, he didn't blend in very well at all.
No. So let's talk a little bit about your book, because we talked about what the book is about, but your book itself is available on Amazon, right?
Yeah, any of my books, available anywhere that you would pick up books, and bookstores too.
So this book is called Lincoln's Grave Robbers, and there's others that you have written, and they're all nonfiction, which is kind of my jam. I mean, I fiction is great, but I really like to know history. I like to know what's going on.
Yeah, that's true for me too.
What is it that made you decide in particular? I mean, it sounds stupid to even ask because we've just been talking about it for an hour, but the idea of writing the book about Lincoln compared to the other books, was this a earlier book, a later book? Is this something like when you decided to start writing in this genre that this was like, this is one topic I need to write about?
It was just because, like I said, stranger than fiction, which always grabs me. A true crime, but not the one that you're expecting. The fact that it pulls in, like we're talking about, Abraham Lincoln and these parts of history. It took place at this really significant moment in American history, but it's not really well known. I think that's, to me, the most exciting part about it, was that it's really not, even now, it's not very well known.
No, it isn't. And I'm actually, I guess I'm surprised by that a little bit, because it is so unique, and there's so many facets to it. Like there isn't, like I would have thought there would have even been like a movie, and at least I don't know of a movie
I don't know of one either. I think they should. I think someone should get on that.
Yeah, and I've seen a documentary on history. I know that they've done one. I saw one on YouTube as well. Are you working on any new books?
Oh yeah, I'm always working on new things. And the latest one I wrote, you can sort of see the poster behind me. It's called Impossible Escape. Very different. It's this story of a Jewish teenager who escapes from Auschwitz, a Nazi concentration camp in World War II. And a very different, but also kind of incredible. That's the thing that I always look for. It's an incredible true story that most people don't know, how he pulled off what I think is the greatest escape in all of history and I love those kinds of stories, so I'm always looking for stuff like that.
How hard, like with that one, how hard was it to do research being in the US?
I was able to read everything that he wrote and interviews that he did, and so that's all available either in books or online. I went to Poland and Slovakia and researched from there too, because I just felt like I just had to. I mean, that was like, if I wanted to study Lincoln, you got to go to Springfield, you got to go to this tomb. Luckily, that's a lot easier for us to get to than the middle of Europe, but that is worth seeing. You can go in that monument today, and maybe again, part of the reason it's not well known is if you go there, they don't say a word about it. And fair enough, it's almost church-like. If you go in there, there's tombs, Mary's in there somewhere, the bodies of some of his family members, and it's okay. They don't have a little, display of a grave robbing. That just would maybe feel inappropriate. Although I think people who visited would like it, but it's just that they just don't talk about it.
Do you think that might have to do with the fact that it was so it was so close to actually something that could have happened, and it really exposes at the time, just on the law side, that it's just they weren't as stellar as they could have been in that?
That's definitely true. I think it was embarrassing. It was really horrifying to them. If you go to everything in Springfield, a lot of it is about Abraham Lincoln, of course, and you can see the house he lived in. But if there's the presidential library, and I don't think it's on display, but I remember an archivist said, "Hey, you want to see something cool?" And he pulled open a drawer, and in the drawer were the grave robber's tools.
Wow.
They had a hammer, chisel, a lantern. And when the shootout began, when these police started firing at these guys, they dropped everything and made a run for it. And like we said, temporarily got away, but they dropped everything in the graveyard. And so these artifacts do still exist. And yeah, I don't know if you could do something. I mean, I know that of course it would make a great display, but again, in the library, is that the kind of thing that they want to talk about?
I guess.
I don't know. Maybe I feel like it's part of the story, and it certainly would get younger people interested. And I'd go for it if I were them.
It really shows, and maybe not in the best way, but it really shows what Lincoln means to the country, I guess.
That's a good point too. How important? Who else would would get this kind of attention, and besides Abraham Lincoln? You're right.
Absolutely. Steve Sheinkin, author, go please check out his books over on Amazon, and please support him. Steve, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Greg. This was really a lot of fun.
It was. Thank you so very much. And then, folks, I hope to see some of you over at Ghost Stories and Beyond tomorrow at Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka. Starts at 6:30. Everyone, have a good night.
I'm standing up for the middle class. Tom Hartman here on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park.